Today's video covers a number of things in relation to the Favero Assioma power meter pedals. First up, I perform a conversion that results in a set of SPD compatible pedals that are cheaper, lighter, more accurate, and have almost twice the battery life as the SRM X-Power SPD power meter pedals. I then perform a static weight test to verify the readings are still within the manufacturer's spec after the conversion. I then do a static weight test or a verification on the Quarq DZero that's on the same bike to make sure that's in line too. I then do a road test on the gravel with these converted pedals, and then we look at the data from that ride. Okay, there's a lot to get into, let's get to it. Back in late 2019, I published a video, an instructional video, on how to convert a set of Assioma road power meter pedals over to Shimano SPD compatible pedal bodies. They were great for gravel, most mountain biking, and even road if you wanted the dual-sided clip-in. Now this hack first came to light over on the Trainer Road forums a few months prior to that, so credit goes to Mike, aka the Magic Spanner, for this idea. Now in my previous conversion video, I used the Xpedo M-Force 4 SPD compatible pedal bodies for the conversion. And it looks like they've become hard to find. And a lot of people are asking, what are the alternatives they can use for a similar conversion? Again, I consulted the Trainer Road forum for this, and it looks like the more readily available M-Force 8 will do the job just fine. For the full conversion process, I will refer you to my original video where I take a set of these road pedals from Favero and convert them over from start to finish. In this video, I'm going to swap out the M-Force 4 pedal bodies on my already converted pedals over to the M-Force 8.
The tools and equipment used today are obviously the M-Force 8 Xpedo pedals, the previously converted M-Force 4 Assioma Duos. I have a 6mm and an 8mm hex wrench, a 9mm socket, and a torque wrench. A quick spin of the previously converted M-Force 4s, and you can see they're working just fine. And they've treated me very well out on the road. Okay, over to the scales. Wouldn't be a real tech video without pulling out a set of scales. To put this to the test, it says 215 grams on the box, and it's spot on the money. So good to see a manufacturer right on spec for the weight. Now you also need to factor in the mounting hardware, and there's 65 grams of those too. Just as reference, the previous conversion weighs in at 343 grams. Okay, keeping the left and right pedals separate for this process. The last thing you want to do is mix up the end caps and bolts and things. So we're doing the right pedal first. End caps removed. And checking the condition of these pedals after many months of use, you can see just a little bit of dirt and grime on the outside of the oil cap, they call it. And then when we remove that to check the inside up against the bearing, all looks pretty good, to be honest. There's still the green coloured grease from when I first did the conversion. So that oil cap, or dust cap I would call it, does quite well. And before I forget, the weight difference between the M-Force 4 and the M-Force 8 pedal bodies is only 8 grams. So in the previous conversion that I did, we continued to use the dust cap or oil cap from the original Favero Assioma pedal bodies and not the one with the O-ring that comes with the M-Force mountain bike pedals. Now, it should fit, so just by eye here, it kind of lines up. The threads are the same, the thread lengths are the same. So what I'll try and do is use the O-ring and see how, oh, that wasn't to plan, and see if it works on the Assioma spindle. But I don't like my chances. it spins freely there, but as soon as we put that end nut on, tighten it down just a little bit, it locks up way too much and doesn't freely spin, so that's not going to work. Okay, so off with that O-ring cap and on with the original Favero Assioma spindle one. And we should be good to go with this. Torque spec is between 8 and 10 Newton meters. I choose 9, right in the middle. There's a little bit of play there, but as soon as you get the end cap on, that will then go away. And we are good to go. No play, spins freely, just as the other pedal bodies did. Happy days. Okay, that to the side and rinse and repeat for the left pedal. And the left pedal, just the same. Good as gold and good to go. So the finished product with the M-Force 8 pedal bodies, ready to install. But first, let's put these on the scale for the final weigh-in. $163, 327 grams. If you're wondering what I did with the spare spindles and the spare pedal bodies, well, I put the titanium spindles on the M-Force 4 pedal bodies to give myself another set of mountain bike pedals. Use that conversion process completed nice and quickly, and the end result, I now have a set of mountain bike pedals for another bike that come in at 232 grams. Not too bad at all. Onto the Xpedo with these new pedals. A little bit of grease, the washer, and cinch down relatively tight. One thing you do need to be aware of with the Assioma is there needs to be an air gap here and here. If the pod is touching your crank, it could damage the power meter and you definitely will not get accurate power readings. After the installation, it's time for a static weight verification, or a static weight test on the Favero Assiomas using their app. And my weight is 20.029 kilos. It's the right pedal. We hit calibrate to 0 the power meter. Wait for that to come back happy, and that's done. Okay, and carefully placing the very heavy weight on the pedal, we hit measure, and it should come back telling us within spec what that is. 20.04, so we're in 0.5% of spec. That's okay with me. No need to do any scaling on that. And it's rinse and repeat for the left-hand side. This coming in just a little under, but within 0.79% of spec, so not too bad. I will retest this after the first ride. Now on to the static weight test of the Quarq DZero. Well, technically it's a SRM axis power meter, but it's a DZero by any other name. As the weight needs to be hung off the crank parallel to the ground, I need to lock out the rear brake, so I'm doing that with a bit of Velcro strap here on the left lever, our rear brake here in Australia. The power meter is then zeroed. Now it's this number here on screen that I'm looking at, and it should average around 33.89. The mathematics behind this is 20.029, my weight, times gravity, which is 9.81, times the crank length, 0.1725. That should give us 33.89, and you can see here, it's bouncing around about that value. It would be nice to have a 3-second average smoothing on that field. And it's rinse and repeat for the left side. Which looks about the same. And finally, it's time to get out on the open gravel road and put these to the test. And once that was over, it was back to the Llama garage and back to the static weight test on the Assioma Duos to see if anything had changed after the first ride, if there was any bedding in, so to speak. So testing here, the right pedal, we're now within 0.1% rather than 0.05%, so that's changed just a little bit after the first ride. Switching over to the left pedal, same process as before, which is now reading a little bit closer to spec than before, being only 0.54% different than the weight that I'm hanging off it for this test.
Jumping into the two datasets recorded from that gravel ride, one being the Favero Assioma Duos with the conversion and the other being the Quarq DZero on the bike. Now this is a gravel ride, so the power is on, off, the cadence is random, it's gear changing, there's a lot more going on gravel, so this thing held up pretty good. Diving into a section of the ride here, some steady state, into the sprint. Now that was a standing start sprint. It was actually the footage that I showed just before clipping in and riding off. So it was whichever power meter woke up first, kicked in, and you can see that the Quarq woke up a little sooner. It's also got to do with recording intervals, but the main thing is there's no major separation with the peak power for that. And then I turned the corner and stomped on the pedals again above 600, and all is looking pretty good there. The only difference that's noticeable in this data is the starts and stops, which is normal, and there's a lot more of them in a gravel ride than out on the road. And you'll see that just here when I dive in a little further. But all is looking good there. No major standouts. A few slight dips from the Quarq. But again, the randomness of gravel, that's actually not too bad overall. It's actually pretty good. And right at the end of the ride, I performed a short sprint. I'll jump into that. So this was jumping off a gutter, so you'll see the power be a bit strange through here. Into the maximal sprint, so testing two things there. How do the power meters line up, and how do my shoes go clipped into these things? The answer, no problems whatsoever. Both peaking out 1187, 1195. That's pretty close to me. Yep, I'll give that a pass. Cadence data also looks good, but again, a lot of stop starts with the gravel rides. Just through here though, steady state section, and you can see there the cadence numbers, pretty much 1 for 1. And finally, pulling up the mean max power graph, and all looks really good here too. No separation, indicating an offset between the two. There's no areas where it really failed, both within spec of each other. Definitely a pass from me. Okay, so the conversion process worked, the writing was good, and the data all lines up. 3 from 3, it's happy days. Now, there's a few things to be aware of with this conversion. First up, you'll void your warranty with Favero if you're swapping out these unsupported pedal bodies. But mum's the word, if you do have any issues, just swap your road pedal bodies back on and you could probably get some warranty support anyway, but I didn't tell you that one. The Favero Assioma pod also is big. If you've seen my original conversion video, you may need to modify your shoe to get the clearance you need away from that pod. That's also a downside. The M-Force 8 cost a little more than the M-Force 4. The M-Force 8 here in Australia were $229, which is around 170 US. And I also wouldn't consider this a suitable power meter solution for those doing jumps or hardcore downhill or going full send or banging pedals or cranks. Probably best to have a power meter in the Spider where it's a little more protected for those rides. Having said that, all the good stuff is right here for these. So what's to be happy about? Plus and minus 1% power accuracy, you get IAV, the instantaneous angular velocity, so you get Q-ring support if you really want to ride Q-rings on a mountain bike or gravel bike or road bike with this conversion. You get cycling dynamics, you get full dual-sided power or single if you want to convert just the Assioma Unos. All this applies to that, just do it for one pedal. You get up to 50 hours of use between recharges. You'll likely get more even after 3 years. I think I was around 57 hours or so out of the batteries that I had. And plus, and Bluetooth support, so compatible with everything. Easy installation and bike swaps if you want to swap these over between bikes. There's no extra tools needed other than an 8mm hex wrench. They're only 327 grams, so they're pretty light. And last on my list here, Assioma have a proven track record over the last 3 years since they've been on the market. People seem to love their Assiomas. The same can't be said about any other power meter pedal. If you've been holding out waiting for officially supported SPD compatible power meter pedals, I will attempt to get a hold of these, but they'll want to be mighty good to go up against this Favero Assioma power meter conversion. Oh, there's also these as well we've been promised, but we don't talk about those anymore, do we? And with that, we'll leave it there for today. Thanks for watching.